The Senate will come to order. The senators will please take their seats. Those persons not entitled to the privileges of the floor will kindly retire to the gallery. The senators and all in attendance will please stand and be led in prayer by the Reverend Dolores Borum, Faith of Living World Outreach Center, Grafton. Reverend Borum, thank you so much.
Let us pray. The Word of God says, righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. Almighty God, full of wisdom and grace, I come to you today on the behalf of our Senate that you put into leadership position to govern, guide, and represent our nation. I pray that you will use them and their ability to do what is right in your sight, for you and for the citizens that they oversee. Father, you are their guiding light, and in the newness of life, they will do what is right in your sight, for righteousness exalts a nation. So I remind them in prayer today that there is no big eyes or little eyes in you, but they must conduct themselves under the mighty hand and be willing to be led by your Spirit. I pray that you bless those in authority according to your word, and that they may live peaceful and quiet, holy lives. This is your servant's prayer. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you, and God bless America.
The clerk will call the roll. All those present will please vote aye. The clerk will close the roll.
You have a quorum, Mr. President. Senate Journal from Monday, February 29, 2016.
The senator from Stafford, Senator Stewart, moves that the reading of the journal be waived. All in favor of waiving the reading of the journal will record their votes aye. Those opposed, nor are the senators ready to vote. Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 33, noes 6.
Ayes 33, noes 6. The reading of the journal is waived. The clerk will please report any communications from the House. Senator from James City County.
Mr. President, I respectfully move that we waive the reading of any communications received from the House, sir.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the reading of the communication be waived? All in favor of waiving the reading of the communication from the House of Delegates will record their votes aye. Those opposed, nor are the senators ready to vote. Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 33, noes 6.
Ayes 33, noes 6. The reading of the communication is waived. The clerk will please report any communications from the governor.
We do not have any, sir.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The time has come to recognize visitors to the gallery and take up other matters for the morning hour. The senator from Eastern Fairfax County, Senator Surville.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for a request and an introduction.
Senator has the floor.
First of all, Mr. President, with regard to the request, I would request that the journal be marked to excuse my seatmate, the gentleman from Prince William, who's away from the body on pressing personal business.
Thank you, Senator. The journal will so reflect that the senator from Prince William County, Senator McPike, is away from the Capitol on pressing personal business. The senator from Eastern Fairfax County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now my introduction. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, joining us in the gallery today is a constituent of mine, Arnulfo Obando Jr. Mr. Obando lives in the Occoquan part of my district. He's a first-class petty officer in the United States Navy, was deployed to Afghanistan on the USS Ponce, which is actually the only ship in the Navy that actually has a laser. When he's not serving the Navy, he lives back in Occoquan. I actually met his family knocking doors this last campaign. If you want to go on my Facebook page, you can see a picture of me and his dad and his mom right at their front door. Big smiles, and it's a great family there in Occoquan. I'd ask the Senate give Mr. Obando a warm Senate welcome.
Thank you, Senator. Would Arnolfo Obando please rise? Thank you, sir, for being with us this afternoon. And as the good senator from Eastern Fairfax County said, thank you for your service to this country and the United States Navy. We appreciate that, and hope you have a wonderful visit this afternoon in Mr. Jefferson's capital. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Mr. Arnolfo Obando the warm welcome of the Senate. The senator from Alexandria, Senator Eben.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for an introduction.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, in the gallery today, I have a student who's shadowing me today. She's an intern at the National Cancer Registrars Association Alexandria, and that's Jillian Wasner. Jillian is a student at Furman University in Greenville, South Carolina, and resides when she's not in school or in Alexandria in Boston, Massachusetts.
Senator, would Gillian Wasner please rise? Welcome, Gillian, and appreciate you helping out the good senator from Alexandria today, and hope all is going well with your college career. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Ms. Gillian Wasner the warm welcome of the Senate. The senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rise for the purposes of an introduction.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, we have with us today a group of individuals visiting from Ukraine. This Ukrainian delegation is being hosted by Virginia Commonwealth University. And Mr. President, I am very gracious of you to accept the fact that I'm going to read off their first names and you're going to take a shot at the last names for our delegation. Mr. President, we have Arena, Yuri, Oksana, Natalia, Yulia, and Vyacheslav with us today. And if you could offer them the warm welcome of the Senate as we go about dealing with some of the issues that face the Commonwealth today.
Thank you, Senator. And it's a pleasure having members from the Ukrainian delegation with us this afternoon. And I think the senator did very well with the pronunciation of your names, and so I won't repeat that. But we appreciate you being with us. It's always great to have folks from other countries visit us, and we can share ideas and see how each other conducts business. And hope you're able to hang around for just a little bit and see how the Virginia Senate makes policy each year. So thanks for being here. We hope you have an enjoyable afternoon. I would ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering members from the Ukrainian delegation the warm welcome of the Senate. The senator from Buckingham, Senator Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for purposes of an introduction.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, it's my honor in the gallery today to welcome my legislative chief, former Army compatriot, professional skydiver, and all-around gangsta, Kevin Reynolds, and his family. Mr. President, Kevin's joined by his wife, Corey, who is special in a number of ways. Number one, she's the head school psychologist in Greene County and the mother of Kevin's 3 daughters, but primarily because she puts up with Kevin, which is not easy, as I can attest. Joining Corey is Becca Reynolds. She's a 5th grader at Ruckersville Elementary. She's a superstar soccer player who has perfected the slide tackle and is playing Miss Hannigan in this school's rendition of Annie this year. And also joining Kevin and Corey is their daughter Sadie, who's in the 4th grade at Ruckersville Elementary School. And Mr. President, and this is true, Sadie aspires to be an astrophysicist. So I informed Kevin that visiting the Senate chamber might be her first experience with black holes, where matter goes in, disappears, and is never again seen. Also, amongst the 3 prides of the Reynolds family is Lauren, who is not with them today, as she is a House page. Mr. President, I often tell people that most of the legislative aides in the General Assembly are young and attractive, and Kevin Reynolds is neither. With that, I ask that you extend the Reynolds family the warm welcome of the Virginia Senate.
Thank you, Senator. Would Mr. and Ms. Kevin Reynolds and Becca and Sadie please rise? Thank you all so much for being with us this afternoon. And Kevin, thank you so much for helping the good senator from Buckingham. I know you all have a great team and are getting some great things done. And it's great to see you all here from the 4th and 5th grade. Wow, you all are smart-looking young ladies, and we wish you the best, and we encourage you to obey your teachers and your parents, and that good things will happen for you. So appreciate you being here this afternoon. I would ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Kevin, Corey, Becca, and Sadie Reynolds the warm welcome of the Senate. The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for purposes of introduction, sir.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, I'd appreciate it if you would extend a very warm welcome from the Senate of Virginia to the Reverend Dolores Borum, who delivered this morning's invocation. She is in the gallery with her guests, Karen Brown and Alvin Brown. But just like to take a moment and share some information with you about the Reverend Borum. She actually was a school teacher in York County for 20 years before she retired in the full-time ministry. And in 1983, she co-founded the Faithful Living Dolores Borum Ministries along with her late husband, George R. Borum. She has done many things in the community. She has had the vision and was the founder of the Natasha House in 2001, and that is a transitionary housing for a safe place for women and children that have been subject to abuse or otherwise displacement. She has degrees from two of the colleges in our community, Christopher Newport University and my beloved College of William and Mary. She has also authored 3 books, so I would appreciate it if you would be so kind to extend a very warm welcome to Reverend Dolores Borum and her 2 guests, Karen and Alvin Brown.
Thank you, Senator. Would Reverend Dolores Borum and Karen and Alvin Brown please rise? Thank you all so much for being with us this afternoon. And Reverend, you have done so much good work teaching and now pastoring, and you've touched a number of lives over the years, so we appreciate that. And thank you for coming to the Senate this afternoon and getting us off on the good foot with a wonderful prayer. So, and we certainly hope you'll come back and visit us often. I would ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering the Reverend Dolores Borum and Karen and Alvin Brown the warm welcome of the Senate. I know there's some other visitors with us in the gallery, and if I haven't recognized you, we certainly welcome you to the gallery and appreciate you coming and visit us today and hope you have a wonderful stay here in Mr. Jefferson's capital. Is there any other business? The senator from Franklin County, Senator Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for a late introduction, if possible.
The senator has the floor.
Mr. President and members of the Senate, as I gazed into the gallery, I saw one of our important people that's important to my seatmate, sitting with his legislative aide, Chris. Mr. President, she's always a ray of sunshine when she visits us on the Capitol. She is known truly as the better half of Senator McDougal. If you'll please extend the warm welcome of the Senate to Dr. Robin McDougal, who I like to say, Mr. President, when you see Robin, it proves that you can have the last name of McDougal and still be smart and funny and beautiful.
Thank you, Senator. It's probably a good idea to stop there.
Thank you.
Robin, and your guests, please rise. It is always good to see you, and we appreciate you being here. Not so much for your husband, but to keep some of his seatmates behaving themselves. And they do good work and also have a good time, which is all very important. So thanks for being here, and hope all is going well with you. And thanks for all the great work that you all are doing at VCU. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Dr. Robin McDougal and guests the warm welcome of the Senate. Senator Favola, did you have the Senator from Arlington, Senator Favola?
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for purposes of an introduction.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. In the gallery today is Team Favola. My legislative aide, who's been my aide for many years now, Arlene Spinelli, is with us. My communications director, Abigail Fox. And this year we have 2 interns from VCU. One is Destiny Boyd. Destiny is a junior at Virginia Commonwealth University. She's majoring in political science and philosophy, and she's a star at on the university's field hockey team. Samantha Lewis is also with us. She's a junior at VCU, and she's majoring in political science and economics. She's a member of the VCU crew team, and she's currently the fundraising chair for that team. So I guess I really do have to tap more of Samantha's talents. I didn't know she was a fundraiser. Both of these interns are contributing mightily to the Senate office. It's always a delight to have young people look at the legislative process through fresh eyes and see how the government works, or sometimes maybe limps along. But it is with great pleasure that I introduce my team, and I thank them very much for helping me be a good senator, and I ask that the Senate extend its warm welcome to Team Favola.
Thank you, Senator. Will Team Favola please rise? Go Rams. Yeah, it's great to have you all here, and thanks for helping out the good senator from Arlington. I know she appreciates your all's help and is getting some good work done this session, so we hope you've had a wonderful experience. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering members from Team Favola the warm welcome of the Senate. Is there any other business for the morning hour? Seeing none, I would ask the clerk to please call the calendar.
Senate calendar for Tuesday, March the 1st, 2016. Unfinished business, House. House Bill 681, the House has rejected the Senate substitute.
The senator from Rockingham.
Mr. President, I move that we insist on the Senate substitute and request a committee of conference.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate insist on this substitute and request a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 0.
Ayes 39, no 0. The motion is agreed to.
House Bill 752, the House has rejected the Senate substitute.
Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I would ask that we insist on the Senate substitute and request a committee of conference.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate insist on its substitute and request a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 0.
Ayes 39, no 0. The motion is agreed to.
Turning to page 6, unfinished business, Senate. Senate Bill 7 has passed the House with an amendment.
The senator from Franklin, Senator Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I now move that we concur with the House amendment. And speaking to that motion, sir.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the body, this bill, Senate Bill 7, is regarding providing counselors, attorneys to those parents who are indigent who may be facing their children going into foster care. What this bill originally did, if you recall, was to make sure that we had the highest quality of court-appointed counsel available for these persons. Because what we're seeing now is that some of the lists on court-appointed lists, due to the downturn in the economy, we're having a lot of attorneys that aren't qualified to handle domestic relations matters, and usually the indigent court list pertains to criminal court cases. Well, here what this bill did was to make sure that those attorneys would be appointed in those type of cases would be qualified as guardians ad litem. And what this amendment did was to add, or at the discretion of the judge who would know perhaps somebody who's not a guardian ad litem but is well versed in domestic relations, to be appointed to those cases. So it gave a little more versatility and discretion to the court, which is surprising coming over from the House of Delegates. So I think it made the bill better. And therefore, I would now renew my motion that we concur with the House amendment.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendment? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 0.
Ayes 39, no 0. The Senate concurs with the House amendment.
Senate Bill 71 has passed the House with amendment.
The junior senator from Loudoun, Senator Wexton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate concur with the House amendment. And speaking to that motion.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the bill that provided that spousal support could be awarded by the court, notwithstanding a party's failure to prove any grounds for divorce. But this amendment just simply clarifies that the request for spousal support would have to have been properly pled by the party seeking support, and I would ask that we accept it.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendment? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 34, noes 5.
Ayes 34, noes 5. The Senate concurs with the House amendment.
Senate Bill 120 is passed the House with a substitute.
Senator from Grayson, Senator Carrico.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I ask that we reject the Senate substitute. This is the bill that was dealing with the issuings of mailing summonses to the individual for passing a school bus. The cameras on the bus would capture the individual passing the vehicle. Then they would be able to mail a summons to that individual that violated that law, and it was a civil violation. The House substitute takes out a lot of the language that directs and instructs how those summonses are to be issued in the rebuttable offense, and I would ask that we reject the House substitute.
Thank you, Senator. With the recommendation that it be rejected, the question is, should the House concur with the House substitute? Should the Senate concur with the House substitute? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 1, noes 38.
Ayes 1, noes 38. The House substitute is rejected.
Senate Bill 133 has passed the House with a substitute.
The senator from Roanoke City, Senator Edwards.
Mr. President, I move that we concur in the House substitute. It's a substitute, actually, rather than an amendment. Mr. President, what this bill does, what the substitute does, Senate Bill 133 deals with the civil action for human, on the part of the victim for human trafficking. The House added a provision that a juvenile who is a victim of another section, felony section of the code, 18.2-48, abduction with intent to extort money or for immoral purposes, be added to this provision. And I think that's a good idea, and therefore I recommend that the Senate concur in the House substitute.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House substitute? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 0.
Ayes 39, noes 0. The Senate concurs with the House substitute.
Senate Bill 253 has passed the House with a substitute.
The junior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator DiStefano.
Mr. President, Senate Bill 253 deals with confidentiality of victims of human sex trafficking, dating violence, domestic violence, sexual assault, and stalking. The House substitute ruins the bill. So with that, I recommend we reject the House substitute.
All right, thank you, Senator. With the recommendation that it be rejected, the question is, shall the Senate concur with the House substitute? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 0, noes 39.
Ayes 0, noes 39. The House substitute is rejected.
Senate Bill 339 has passed the House with amendments.
Senator from Spotsylvania, Senator Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would concur with the House amendments. Speaking to those briefly.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, apparently House courts are better English scholars than those of us on our body in the courts. They decided to take out a few repetitive words that we have in there and some unnecessary language, added the word reasonable in front of line 21 in fear of death. So you must be reasonably in fear of death on this stalking bill. Move that we concur with the House amendments.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendments? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 0.
Ayes 39, noes 0. The Senate concurs with the House amendments.
Senate Bill 342 has passed the House with amendments.
The senator from Portsmouth, Senator Lucas.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. Thank you very much. I move that we concur with the House amendments. Speaking to that, Mr. President.
Senator has the floor.
Okay, the amendments that were adopted in the House makes this bill identical to House Bill 645, Lethbridge's bill. All the parties came to an agreement before the House voted on House Bill 645. So all the changes were made to be incorporated. It happened just, but our bill went out before they finished theirs, and so now the bills are in alignment.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendments? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 38, noes 1.
Ayes 38, noes 1. The Senate concurs with the House amendments.
Senate Bill 368 is passed the House with a substitute.
Senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate concur with the House substitute in speaking to the motion.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, as the bill came through the Senate, we struck out a portion of the existing law. When we went over to the House, apparently they felt that they had written that verbiage last year, and as a result, did not like the more expedient way that we redrafted it. So we reinserted their previously drafted language and kept ours in place. So with that, Mr. President, I've renewed my motion that we concur with the House substitute.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House substitute? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 0.
Ayes 39, noes 0. The Senate concurs with the House substitute.
Senate Bill 392 is passed the House with amendment.
Senator from Eastern Fairfax County, Senator Surville.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we agree to the House amendments and speaking to that motion.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, this bill just simply allows somebody to partially release a judgment. The clerks looked at it, wanted to make sure they got their money, so they put an amendment on it that said you can release it partially if you pay the clerk their money. I think it's a good amendment. I would move that we accept the amendment.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendment? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 38, noes 0.
Ayes 38, noes 0. The Senate concurs with the House amendment.
Senate Bill 423 is passed the House with amendments.
The senator from Northern Fairfax County, Senator Howe.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move we concur with the House amendments. This is a Crime Commission bill that deals with asset forfeiture. It's had absolutely no controversy, and maybe because of that, the House felt they had to go over it with a red pencil. So there are, I don't know, about 9 or 10 grammatical corrections, and that's all they are, grammatical corrections.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendments? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 0.
39, noes 0. The Senate concurs with the House amendments.
Senate Bill 425 is passed the House with amendment.
The senator from Roanoke City, Senator Edwards.
Mr. President, I move that we concur in the House amendment. What this is a technical correction to delete the words "and consents to such notification" in the sentence that provides that where a memorandum of understanding between the Community Services Board and Mental Health Facility provides that the memorandum shall designate a contact person to be notified to the extent authorized by state and federal privacy laws when a student is involuntarily committed. And the language "and consents to such notification" inadvertently remained, and the House deleted that provision to make it correct. So with that understanding, Mr. President, I renew my motion to concur in the House amendment.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendment? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 0.
Ayes 39, noes 0. The Senate concurs with the House amendment.
Senate Bill 427 is passed the House with amendments.
Senator from Newport News, Senator Miller.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move we concur with the House amendments. And speaking to that motion.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. This is the bill that does not punish schools when a parent opts their child out of taking an SOL test. Currently, the school has to report the score as a 0 if a student opts out. This bill says that no score would be reported for the first 5% who opt out of the test. The first House amendment clarifies that it is the parent is the one who must opt the child out. The second amendment is wordsmithing to better define that we're complying with federal law that limits to 5% the number of students who are allowed to opt out. Mr. President, I renew my motion that we concur with the House amendment.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendments? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 35, noes 3.
Ayes 35, noes 3. The Senate concurs with the House amendments.
Senate Bill 443 is passed the House with a substitute.
Senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, we have a robust nutrient credit trading program in the Chesapeake Bay watershed area. This bill, Senate Bill 443, would set up a nutrient credit exchange program in the southern rivers by establishing an expedited process for certifying nutrients. The bill, as it left the Senate, envisioned a fee that would set up an expedited process. The House amendments removed that fee and instead set up a time-specific table for these credits to be certified. So I agree with that particular change and move that we concur with the House amendments.
Thank you, Senator. The senior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator Wagner. Sorry, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House substitute? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 0.
Ayes 39, noes 0. The Senate concurs with the House substitute.
Senate Bill 466 is passed the House with a substitute.
The senior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 466 deals with the rights of an incapacitated person to have communication with, visitation, or interaction with those outside of perhaps the immediate guardian of the individual. I ask that we accept the House amendments, which makes it identical to a bill that was previously passed out of the Senate.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House substitute? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 0.
Ayes 39, noes 0. The Senate concurs with the House substitute.
Senate Bill 543 is passed the House with amendment.
Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that the House amendment be agreed to. This amendment simply clarifies that this bill is not to be retroactively applied.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendment? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 0.
Ayes 39, noes 0. The Senate concurs with the House amendment.
Senate Bill 567 is passed the House with amendments.
Senator from Southern Fairfax County, Senator Barker.
Mr. President, I move that we concur with the House amendments. This is a bill that deals with the detention and commitment process for those people in mental health situations. It was a recommendation of the Legislative Subcommittee dealing with mental health services in the 21st century. There are three amendments. Two are simply language, line amendments, and the other one simply adds after law enforcement or the designee of the law enforcement entity. So I hope to be the pleasure of the body to adopt the amendments.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendments? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 34, noes 5.
Ayes 34, noes 5. The Senate concurs with the House amendments.
Senate Bill 590 has passed the House with amendment.
Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that the House amendment be agreed to. This bill is a housekeeping bill for the courts, and it provides for a uniform method for setting hours, and at the request of the clerks around the state, the amendment was added to make clear that the clerks retained their current statutory prerogative to set the hours of operation for a clerk's office.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendment? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, nor are the senators ready to vote. Have all the senators voted? If any senators desire to change their votes, the clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 38, noes 0.
Ayes 38, noes 0. The Senate concurs with the House amendment.
Senate Bill 743 has passed the House with amendments.
The senior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 743 moves to the Department of Mines, Minerals, and Energy the requirement to certify solar projects for tax treatment. What the House amendment does is remove the 5 megawatt limitation on it and makes it for all solar projects. With that explanation, I ask that we accept the House amendment.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendments? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, nor are the senators ready to vote. Have all the senators voted? If any senators desire to change their votes, the clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 0.
Ayes 39, noes 0. The Senate concurs with the House amendments.
Senate Bill 544, the House insists on its substitute and requests a committee of conference.
The senator from Lynchburg, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that we accede to the House request for a committee of conference.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate accede to the request for a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, nor are the senators ready to vote. Have all the senators voted? If any senators desire to change their votes, the clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 0.
Ayes 39, noes 0. The motion is agreed to.
House bills with governor's recommendation. House Bill 104.
The senator from Fauquier County, Senator Vogel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we adopt the governor's recommendation. And speaking to that motion.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. What House Bill 104 did was basically an effort to keep up with technology, and it says that if the voting machine itself actually has a hard drive where the voting information is stored, that it's really only the hard drive itself that has to be kept under seal pending the time frame that it has to be maintained prior to a recount. And what the governor's language has done is simply added a technical amendment. It adds one sentence to the bill, and what it attempts to do is just clarify that the machines that don't store any data only have to be kept under lock and seal until they're returned to their storage location. And with that, I would ask that you adopt the governor's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate agree with the governor's recommendation? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, nor are the senators ready to vote. Have all the senators voted? If any senators desire to change their votes, the clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 0.
Ayes 39, noes 0. The Senate agrees with the governor's recommendations.
Uncontested calendar House bills on third reading.
Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I respectfully move that all the House bills on the third reading on the uncontested calendar, which would include all House bills Senator Saslaw, excuse me for interrupting you. I hope I didn't interrupt that personal conversation. Mr. President, I think it was that call from Las Vegas about that bet he placed last night. Mr. President, I respectfully move that all the House bills on the third reading on the uncontested calendar, which would include all House bills on pages 16 through 23, including House Bill 66 through House Bill 1329, be placed on their final passage after the adoption of any amendments thereto. If any senator desires to remove a bill from the block, please do so after the clerk has read the number of the bill, or if you prefer to listen to Senator Saslaw's voicemail, then you can step outside on that.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House bills on the uncontested calendar, third reading, pages 16 through 23, House Bill 66 through House Bill 1329, be placed upon their final passage in a block after the adoption of any amendments thereto, with the understanding that any senator desiring a bill removed from the block will do so after the clerk has read the number of the bill. All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The bills are before us in the block. The clerk will please read the number of the bills.
House Bill 66, reported for the Committee on Education and Health with an amendment, and there are 2 floor amendments.
Senator from Lynchburg, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the committee amendment be agreed to.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. The senator from Lynchburg.
Mr. President, I move that we waive the reading of the floor amendments.
Question is, shall the reading of the floor amendments be waived? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The reading of the floor amendment is waived. The senator from Lynchburg.
Mr. President, I would hope that we could take the amendments up in a block. Mr. President, the floor amendments which you have on your desk are 2 amendments that we hope are the cure to all the items left in this bill. This is the bill that relates to the ability within the community college for us to get credentials, and I know that it is working its way through the legislative process and also through the budget. Mr. President, there are 2 amendments, the first of which is one that on page 1, after New College, adds Richard Bland College. The reason for this, Mr. President, is they are a 2-year college. We assumed that they would be in when we talked about community colleges, but they're not without having specifically named them in the amendment. Mr. President, the second one is an enactment clause, a second enactment clause, which simply indicates that these institutions that are named are actually granted the authority to do what's in the bill. We talk about how they end up getting funded, and we talk about how the process works, but somehow through that process we forgot to indicate that they actually can do the work that's in it, and the colleges were concerned about that, so this amendment assists with that. Mr. President, I would hope that we would adopt the floor amendments in a block.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the floor amendments en bloc be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The floor amendments are agreed to.
House Bill 98, the committee substitute has been adopted by the Senate. House Bill 750, reported from the Committee on Education and Health. House Bill 1359, reported from the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 118, reported from the Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources. House Bill 136, reported from the Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources with amendment.
Senator from Stafford.
Mr. President, I move the amendments be adopted.
Question is, shall the committee amendments be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendments are agreed to.
House Bill 240.
Mr. President.
The senator from Chesapeake, Senator Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mr. President. On page 16, House Bill 98, I would ask that that go by for the day.
Without objection, House Bill 98 will come out of the block and by for the day.
That's right up there with vandalizing a golf course, which should be punishable by, 20 years to life, self-defense capital punishment.
House Bill 248, reported from the Committee for Courts, reported from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services.
Senator from Grayson.
I'm sorry, Mr. President. Can House Bill 1359 go by for the day?
Without objection, House Bill 1359 will come out of the block and by for the day.
House Bill 342, reported from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services. House Bill 448, reported from the Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources with amendment.
The senator from Stafford. Hi, Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the committee amendment be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is agreed to.
House Bill 584, reported from the Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources. House Bill 782, reported from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services. House Bill 813, reported from the Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources. House Bill 903, reported for the Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources. House Bill 1094, reported for the Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources with amendment.
The senator from Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the committee amendment be agreed to.
Question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is agreed to.
House Bill 1115, reported from the Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources. House Bill 1127, reported from the Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources with amendments.
The senator from Stafford, Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the committee amendment be agreed to.
Question is, shall the committee amendments be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendments are agreed to.
House Bill 1250, reported from the Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources. House Bill 1311, reported from the Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources. House Bill 1329, reported from the Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The question is, shall the House bills pass in block? That's right. That is, all bills except for 98 and 1359. All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? If any senators desire to change their votes, the clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 0.
Ayes 39, noes 0. The bills pass in block.
Regular calendar, House bills on third reading. House Bill 944, a bill to address local ordinances concerning the installation or use of landscape cover materials until regulations have been approved as part of the statewide fire prevention code. Reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology.
Senator from Rockingham.
Mr. President, can I take that by for one more day?
Without objection, House Bill 944 will go by for the day.
House Bill 158, a bill relating to grass cutting in certain counties. Reported from the Committee on Local Government.
Senator from Franklin, Senator Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can House Bill 158 go by for the day, please?
Without objection, House Bill 158 will go by for the day.
House Bill 516, a bill relating to the Board of Education policy on sexually explicit instructional material. Reported from the Committee on Education and Health with amendment.
The senator from Lynchburg, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass and speaking to that motion.
Senator, you have an amendment there we need to get by.
Mr. President, I apologize. Mr. President, I move that the committee amendment be agreed to.
Thanks, Senator. The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. The senator from Lynchburg.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass and speaking to that motion.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, House Bill 516 is a bill that requires that the board establish a policy as it relates to public education in regards to sexually explicit instructional material. Mr. President, this bill is about a quarter of a page long, and if you get an opportunity to go over the words there, I think it would be helpful. First, the bill does require in the first section that a parent be notified if there is a reasonable expectation that this material is being communicated to the students. Next, on line 19 is the second portion, which simply says that a parent is allowed to view the material. The last is that if there is a problem, that a parent could be given alternative instructional information. Mr. President, as you'll note in the calendar also, we did put an amendment on the bill. The amendment says that the material will be deemed to be in this category if determined by the board. Mr. President, I hope that you would pass this bill. Hopefully we see this bill as a notification review and alternative bill and not anything beyond that. Mr. President, I hope that we would support the passage of the bill.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Alexandria, Senator Eben.
Speaking against the bill, sir.
Senator has the floor.
I wanted to just discuss briefly three things about the bill. One is the need or lack of need for this bill. Two is the constitutionality, and three is what the road to censorship looks like. Fairfax County, which is, I understand, where the bill originated from, adopted a process for schools by the school board over a year ago, and they did that on their own. So this bill is not going to have an effect there. Arlington does have a review process for parents to inspect any sort of instructional material. Those are the only two I was able to check with this morning. But in terms of the constitutionality, Article 8, Section 7 of the Constitution is clear that the supervision of each school division shall be vested in a local school board, or in the school board, and the board shall have a primary responsibility and authority for effectuating the educational policy set forth in the article. And in a case in 1978, School Board versus Parham, it explicitly talked about the management of local teaching staffs and local school boards, and particularly about daily management. And this bill divests the school board of its function of daily management, and at least from the schools I could find, it wasn't necessary. But finally, I wanted to talk about the road to censorship. Here are some of the great works that have been censored in the past or removed from consideration by students. The Catcher in the Rye, which was called obscene, negative, foul, and filthy. The Grapes of Wrath, The Great Gatsby, was challenged as to its appropriateness in a college-level course due to language and mere references to sex. The Pulitzer-winning novel Beloved by Toni Morrison. The Scarlet Letter, which was called pornographic and obscene. And I would just say that books provide context for language, themes of coming of age, personal resiliency, and the importance of family while enduring trials and tribulations. These books, and the allure of the American dream and its ever-changing definition, slavery through the eyes of African Americans, sexism, legalism, sin, and repentance. And to simplify these literary classics into specific enumerations of sexually explicit content without contextualizing or discussing them in their totality robs the students of thematic richness and historical context for which these works are valued. Literature is a vehicle that evokes understanding and discussion, and we should not be taking this first step towards encouraging censorship. Schools can already do this. Some schools where there have been complaints already are doing this, but we should think about what we're asking them to consider censoring. Parents have latitude now, they have access to these books, and I just think it's the wrong path to start down. Thank you. I'd ask that you vote against the bill.
Thank you, Senator. The Senator from Northern Fairfax County, Senator Howe.
Speaking against the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, in many ways, this session has been an effort by the Commonwealth to reposition ourselves for the future, and particularly to do that in economic development. We have spent hours on bills forwarding our message that we are a forward-looking Commonwealth where people want to come and do business and create businesses. We are spending tens of millions of dollars in our budget to position ourselves for the future. And I was asking myself, well, what could we do that would totally undermine these efforts? And this bill is it. This bill is it. This shows us to be small-minded. We would be the first and only state to have a policy like this, according to the American Association of Librarians. And when we asked, what books are you talking about? We're told Toni Morrison's books. Toni Morrison's Beloved, Toni Morrison's Bluest Eyes. Toni Morrison has won the National Book Award, the Pulitzer Prize, and she's the last American author to win the Nobel Prize for Literature. So let's just make ourselves look ridiculous. And then we found out another book, Invisible Man, one of the most seminal books on race relations in the last 75 years or so. Let's look ridiculous. Let's just do it, and let's undermine our own efforts to move this Commonwealth forward. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The Senator from Grayson County, Senator Carrico.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking in favor of the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, this bill came through my subcommittee, and excerpts from the book, in which were books that we're talking about. The Pulitzer Prize winner that the gentlelady from Fairfax was speaking about was part of the reference in which we looked at. And I have excerpts, and I could read them here on the floor, but I'd probably be violating some rule because of the language it uses and the explicitity of it. So I'll forego reading those parts of the book. But nothing in this bill would censor anything. Not a single book would be removed. Not a single student or parent would be denied the opportunity to read the book. It just basically says that the parent will be notified, and permission from the parents to review the material, and students would have an alternative choice if they choose not to read that book. There is in Fairfax Family Life Education a form which says the student will identify prevention strategies and effects of abuse, sexual abuse, rape, including date rape. And the parent has the already option to opt them out of that part of it. But yet we're saying that this book shouldn't be looked at, and that the Board of Education shouldn't be looking at the explicit information in the book, the sexual content. When this verbatim quotations from these books were submitted to the Board of Education, due to the context, it couldn't even pass the firewall. It couldn't get to them. And additional verbatim quotes were removed from the Virginia Public Town Hall site because the government offices overseeing that website deemed them to be obscene and harmful to children. Yet we're going to allow these books without any type of oversight to be used for assignments in school. The second thing, and I think this was somewhat quoted, of course, I look at this in the sense that, we're here debating mental health issues all the time. And we're dealing with young, influential minds. These books talk about rape, and they explain them explicitly. These books talk about incest, and it explains it explicitly. These books, this Pulitzer Prize winner that you're talking about talks about bestiality, and it explains it explicitly. And I said in committee, and I stand by it today, my pastor uses the example once in a while about sin, but evil is a seed that grows. And these are evil acts: rape, incest. We pass laws against them. All these things are evil acts. That evil act is just like a kitten. It may be playful and harmless in the beginning, but you feed that evil, it grows, and it grows. And you encourage the feeding of that evil, it's going to grow into a lion, and it's going to eat you. And then we want to say that we have a problem in this country with these violent acts, yet we're sitting here saying that we're not going to support the mere ability to look at the explicit language of influential minds that you're giving these books to. And I would ask that we support the bill, and we give the opportunity to be able to allow these parents the ability to review the material, to understand and opt them out, and give them another option other than the one that they have now. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The Senator from Fairfax City, Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speak to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, there are certain life events that, if they occur to me, my wife is to contact the authorities immediately, because it will be proof that I've been kidnapped by aliens and replaced by a body double. And one of those will be serving on a school board, okay? And the reason is just this. We have school boards at the local level that deal with outraged parents when a book is assigned or an assignment is given and there is unhappiness in the community because they feel that that is appropriate. That is what they do. That is why they are elected, and we did choose to elect them many years ago. That's not our job, and it's really not the job of a state agency to get involved in that process when we have a board that does expressly that. Now let's talk a little bit about what it means to be sexually explicit, and we've talked about it in terms of books, but it really says instructional materials. Now, there are some things that you study in high school that could, in certain circumstances, be considered sexually explicit. The statue David by Michelangelo, the statue Venus de Milo. There are certain photographs that are in a historic nature, but if you look at them in isolation, could be considered sexually explicit. There's a very famous photograph from the Vietnamese War of a young girl running naked towards the camera after a bombing attack. That could be considered sexually explicit. In and of itself, without context, maybe it shouldn't be in front of our children. But within the context of a history lesson or a history book or an art history lesson, it should be in front of them. Or maybe it should be decided by somebody else whether it should be in front of them. You know, I've been contacted by teachers in my district who are very concerned about this bill, and one of the reasons is they teach advanced placement classes, which are supposed to be taught as college classes with a certain level of maturity that's assumed. And yet, we're not making any distinction here for 11th or 12th graders that's studying a college-level material. We're just saying this applies blanketly across the board for every parent of a child that attends a high school or an elementary school. And I'll simply close it, and, you know, gentleman from Grayson's exactly right, that there's a lot of evil in the world, and you read about it, and you attempt to overcome it, and a lot of that, unfortunately, will come in front of our children, whether we like it or not. And every night, I try and read from a book that talks all about evil. It talks about rape, it talks about incest, talks about everything else. It's called the Bible, okay? And you want to talk about a book that has all sorts of unsavory incidents that without context should not be permitted in front of our children. That would be one great work of literature I would commend to you, would qualify. So this legislation, I don't know how it got out of the House 98-0, but this legislation is not necessary. We have people that stand at the gate to watch this issue. It's not us. And I think the gentlelady from Northern Fairfax is exactly correct, that if we do pass this law, I think we're sending a signal that we are not the tops in education that we ought to be. And I think
would the gentleman from Fairfax yield for a question?
Would the gentleman yield for a question?
Gladly.
He yields, Senator.
So you're telling me a book that I read more than any other, the Bible, explicitly explains rape and incest in that book in detail? Tell me that.
Senator from Fairfax City.
I would say if you look at the story of Absalom and his relations with his sister, you might want to look at that story, and that would be an example of incest.
And it talks about how he...
Come through me.
Gentlemen, yield for another question.
I yield.
Yield for an additional question.
I yield.
He yields, Senator.
So the gentleman want to tell me what reference he is reading in which it talks about how Absalom lays down his sister and how he actually, it describes the act that he takes with her. What reference is he reading?
The senator from Fairfax City.
I would say in the book of 2 Samuel, one of the brothers lays with one of the daughters of the king of David, and Absalom kills that brother. And as a result, that incident is described in detail in the Bible. It's in the book of 2 Samuel.
Senator from Grayson.
The gentleman is saying that then...
You'd like to ask another question?
I would like to ask another question.
Yield for an additional question.
I do.
He yields, Senator.
So the gentleman is saying that there is nothing left to the imagination of the acts in which is occurring in those stories.
Senator from Fairfax City.
I would say to the gentleman that the act could be described as sexually explicit under the terms of this legislation, absolutely, the way it's described in 2 Samuel.
The senator from Grayson.
No further questions.
Thank you, Senator. The senior senator from Loudoun, Senator Black.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speak in favor of the measure.
Senator has the floor.
Ladies and gentlemen, I begin by saying that one of the most disturbing things about this whole session has been the constant negative references to Holy Scripture. And I know they're used as justification for every kind of wicked and evil thing that you can think of, but I got to tell you, just on a personal basis, that disturbs me. But as to this measure, what are we trying to hide from parents? Why are we trying to hide this stuff from parents? Remember what this bill does. First of all, it simply tags material that is sexually explicit, and it gives notice to the parents. Why are we afraid to give notice to the parents of material that is deemed sexually explicit? If we were to tag the statue of Michelangelo, which everyone knows would never happen, everybody here knows would never happen, it wouldn't make a bit of difference. Nobody would even think about it. That's not what anybody is going to tag, and we all know that. So we ID, we tag it, we give notice to the parent, and then we give the parent the option to opt out. Now we talk about great works. I heard somebody, not today, but another day, mention the Diary of Anne Frank. I read that when I was young. I remember some very gentle, romantic thoughts and so forth that Anne Frank had, but I don't remember anything that was sexually explicit. And I will tell you that
Mr. President, I'm sorry. I cannot hear the senator. Could you call the body to order, please?
Thank you, Senator. Please take your seat. Please resume, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. But I will tell you that the gentleman from Grayson shared with me privately some of the things that were contained in the works that were challenged by the mother from Fairfax County. I would want to know that. If that were being taught to any of my 14 grandchildren, I would want to know, and I can understand why she was outraged. This material should not be in the schools at all. But we have taken a very gentle measure, because frankly, our culture has gotten beyond the point where it is good and decent. It used to be you'd send your kids to school and you knew that the one place on earth that they were going to be protected from things that were indecent, that were nasty, was with your school teachers. We don't know that anymore. But we introduce a very, very soft and gentle and minor measure that says we identify and flag those things that are, frankly, many of them are unlawful. They're unlawful. If they are obscene, there is a statute in Virginia that makes them unlawful. So we flag them, we give notice to the parent, and we give the parent the option of having an alternative. And I really think we need to respect our parents, and frankly, I think we ought to clean up our schools. They are simply moving in a very dark direction in many respects, in respect to the things that we're instructing, the things that we're requiring our children. Now we're talking about we're going to have boys using the girls' locker rooms and stuff like. We're just going nuts in our schools. I mean, they are sinking below anything that we would have ever imagined 20 years ago, and to oppose such a gentle and minor measure it's upsetting to me that people feel that we cannot notify parents and give them the option. Maybe we're simply embarrassed to have those parents read the type of things that are going on in the school. I suspect that is as much the motivation as anything behind the opposition to this, and I want to see the parents know what their children are saying. So I would encourage everyone to vote for this measure.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Hampton, Senator Locke.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking against the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, This issue arose out of the assignment of Beloved in an AP English class. And that syllabus for that AP class very clearly stated that books assigned in this course may contain mature content, including offensive language, violence, and or implied or explicit sexual situations, information on how to access academic reviews or additional information about books, notification that an alternative reading assignment will be provided if parents and or students object to the selection of an assigned novel, notification that a copy of each novel will be available to parents upon request. It also required the signature of the parent. AP courses are optional. They're not required by the student. So if a student is enrolled in an AP course, they don't like what's in the AP course, which are college level courses, they can opt to do something else. Also, if this bill passes, it not only applies to English language arts, it will also apply to science, physical education, social studies, art and art history, and everything that a student will take except mathematics. So is that the road that we're going down, where we are now beginning to determine what students can and cannot read in whatever course they are taking? It was referred to as, being a kitten that will morph into a lion. I will say to you that this bill is the kitten that's about to morph into a lion, because next year we're going to be seeing something else added on to this legislation that we're going to be banning. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The junior senator from Henrico, Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speak to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
I want to be clear. We are not banning anything with this bill. We are well beyond the scope of the bill now, and somebody must take ultimate responsibility for educating every child in the Commonwealth, and that person is the parent. And the parent should be involved in every syllabus and every class and all the material that the child is seeing. And as we've heard expressed in this body today, there will be a wide scope of opinion about what your child should be exposed to, but that decision should rest with the parent. It concerns me that there's concern that the parent would have a say in all of the syllabuses in the classes. This in no way censors anything. This bill simply places the opportunity where it should be, and that is with the parent to decide what their child should be exposed to while they're minors. And I encourage you to vote for the bill.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Buckingham, Senator Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking of the bill.
Senator has the floor.
I would equate the term speaking against the bill to speaking against telling parents what their children are required to read. Speaking against telling parents what their children are required to read. The word banning, Mr. President, is, and I'm not going to sugarcoat this because these are passages that aren't sugarcoated. The word banning is a lie. There is no suggestion in this bill of banning any single book. And the senator from Grayson is a lot nicer fellow than me, so he wouldn't read these passages. How can we debate them if we don't read them? So I'll redact some of the language, but I'll read them. What could a burnt-out old black man say to the hunchbacked 11-year-old girl? A bolt of desire ran through his genitals, softening the lips of his anus. He wanted to F her tenderly, but tenderness wouldn't hold. The tightness of her V was more than he could bear. His soul seemed to slip down his guts and fly into her.
Mr. President.
I understand.
But, Mr. President, would the gentleman yield for a question?
Would the senator yield for a question?
Yes, sir.
Mr. President, would the gentleman agree that the language that he is even redacting may not be best to have the pages in the room, and that the reading of this document may not be valuable at this point?
Oh, Mr. President, I would wholeheartedly agree, and I would submit that no one should have to listen to that as a minor without the consent of their parents. Mr. President, if I could conclude.
The senator from James City County.
Would the gentleman yield for a question?
The senator from Buckingham. Yield
Absolutely, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I respect your articulation, and I'm asking whether or not you would respect my very humble request to perhaps not be so explicit and to rely upon the articulation that I know is embodied in your spirit and your mind.
Absolutely, Mr. President. If I might conclude, I'll cease reading. I think that makes the point, doesn't it?
Thank you, sir.
And I apologize, that was a rhetorical question. Mr. President, the bottom line is this: nothing in this bill bans anything. To speak against the bill is to speak against informing parents what their children are required to read. And I'll close with this. I'd like veto power before your village is unleashed on my child. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Franklin County, Senator Stanley.
Mr. President, I rise to speak in favor of the bill briefly.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, I certainly enjoy the discourse that we have when it comes to these issues and certainly these bills because, you know, at the end of the day, we all work together to try to do what's right for Virginia. And I heard just a couple of things that I think need remarking, and I mean them in the most sincere ways. We talked about the Bible. My good friend, basically I almost grew up with, the gentleman from Fairfax City, who said that, you know, the Bible has some, what we would consider under this bill, maybe some sexually explicit language, and that maybe that's a book that shouldn't be allowed in our schools. And then I was reminded that we ban that book right now from our public schools, and it's not because of the explicit language. As a parent, I want to know, and my wife, I can tell you, wants to know and has reserved and earned the right to know and to make decisions for our children of what they will read when it comes to this content. That decision, ladies and gentlemen, ultimately rests with us, the parents. And that's what this bill does. Because the same decision that results in that determination that rests with us in what they may or may not read in school is the same determination and authority and power that we have in our home. And I've heard the word censorship. And yes, censorship is horrible in a free society. But let me remind you, and especially, Mr. President, you know my wife, my home is not a free society. Censorship is bad in a free society. But, Mr. President, it is demanded in a good family in order to raise great children who will then become great citizens of our Commonwealth. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Chesapeake, Senator Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, I hope we'll pass this bill, but I do have to express thanks to the gentleman from Lynchburg and the gentleman from James City County in pleading for a stop to one of the worst soliloquies we heard on this House floor. I'm ashamed. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Grayson, Senator Carrico.
Mr. President, I'll be brief. I know that many have spoken, and some have spoken about the Bible, and my good friend from Franklin talked about the fact that we've already banned that from school. And I would just say that the reference made to the Bible about acts are not explicit. They are to teach one about the evil that occurs. And I'll just read from this passage. Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, walks about like a roaring lion, seeking who he may devour.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 516 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. The senators ready to vote. Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 22, noes 17.
Ayes 22, noes 17. The bill passes.
House Bill 481, a bill relating to compliance with detainers, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Criminal Injuries Compensation Fund, reported from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services with a substitute.
Senator from Spotsylvania, Senator Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd ask that we agree to the committee substitute. Then I would ask that the bill go by for the day.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to. House Bill 481 without objection will go by for the day.
House Bill 535, a bill relating to limited liability for beekeepers, reported from the Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources.
Senator from Stafford, Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill pass. And speaking to that motion,
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, this body's aware. I think the senator from Bath has sponsored several bills trying to help get the bee population back up in Virginia. Obviously, we need those for agriculture. And what this bill seeks to do is provide a very limited amount of immunity for beekeepers if their bees sting somebody off of their property, as long as they follow best management practices. And that's what the bill does. And with that, I'd move the bill pass.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 535 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 36, noes 3.
Ayes 36, noes 3. The bill is passed.
House Bill 879, a bill relating to alcoholic beverage control, farm wineries, and limited brewery licenses, land-zoned agricultural. Reported from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services with a substitute, and there is a floor substitute.
The senator from Spotsylvania, Senator Reeves.
Mr. President, I'm going to ask that bill go by for the day. I think we still have some stuff to do on it.
Senator. Without objection, House Bill 879 will go by for the day.
House Bill 1142, a bill relating to hunting with a slingshot. Reported from Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources.
Senator from Stafford, Senator Stewart.
I apologize, Mr. President. I would move that the bill pass. And speaking to that,
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, the folks in Southwest Virginia would like to hunt small game with a slingshot, and that's what this bill does. And with that, I'd move the bill pass.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 1142 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 28, noes 11.
Ayes 28, noes 11. The bill passes.
House Bill 1231, a bill relating to dogs chasing livestock, reported from the Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources with amendments.
The senator from Stafford, Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I would also ask this bill pass. And speaking to that,
Senator, if you could move the amendments.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'd move the amendment be agreed to first.
The question is, shall the committee amendments be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are agreed to. The senator from Stafford.
Mr. President, with that, I would move the bill pass. I'm having a hard time hearing with these dogs around me barking. Mr. President, what this bill does, heretofore, if a dog chased livestock, you had to kill it. So this provides dogs a second chance, and you can actually relocate them or do something else and carry them off and have them euthanized. That's what the bill does.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 1231 pass? All in favor of the motion will record the votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 35, noes 3.
Ayes 35, noes 3. The bill passes.
Uncontested calendar, House bills on second reading.
Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would respectfully move that all of the House bills on the second reading on the uncontested and regular calendar, which would include all House bills on pages 26 through 36, including House Bill 25 through House Bill 1348, that the rules of the Senate be suspended and that the second constitutional reading of the titles be dispensed with, sir.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the rules be suspended and the second reading of the titles of House bills on the uncontested and regular calendars, pages 26 through 36, House Bill 25 through House Bill 1348, be dispensed with? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? If any senators desire to change their votes, the clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 38, noes 0.
Ayes 38, noes 0. The reading of the titles is dispensed with. The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would now ask that all the bills be passed by for the day, sir.
The question is, shall the House bills on the uncontested and regular calendars now on third reading go by for the day? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bills will go by for the day.
Regular calendar House Joint Resolutions on third reading. House Joint Resolution 210, election of a Supreme Court of Virginia Justice. Reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice.
The senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Could that go by for the day?
Without objection, HJR 210 will go by for the day.
Uncontested calendar House Joint Resolution on second reading. House Joint Resolution 64, confirming the appointment by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Virginia of the Chairman of the Virginia Criminal Sentencing Commission.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The senator from James City County.
Mr. President, inquiry of the clerk, does that complete today's very interesting calendar?
Thank goodness, yes.
Is there any other business for the Senate? The clerk will please report any announcements on the desk.
On page 3 of the calendar, the House of Delegates has acceded to the request of the Senate for a committee of conference on House Bill 386. The conferees on the part of the Senate is named by the chair of the Committee on Education and Health, Senator Newman, or Senators Cosgrove, Chase, and Locke. On page 14 of the calendar, Senate Bill 544. The conferees on the part of the Senate is named by the chair of the Committee for Courts of Justice, Senator Obenshain, or Senators Newman, Deeds, and Carrico. Today, Tuesday, March 1st, the Committee on Privileges and Elections will meet immediately upon adjournment in Senate Room A. The Committee on Local Government will meet 1/2 hour after adjournment in Senate Room B. The Education and Health Subcommittee on COPN will meet 1/2 hour after adjournment in Senate Room 3. Senators Newman, Saslaw, Lucas, Barker, Cosgrove, Donovan, Chase, and Suderline. Wednesday, March the 2nd, the Women's Legislative Roundtable will meet at 8:30 a.m., 4th floor East Conference Room. The Committee on Finance will meet at 9 a.m., Senate Room B. The Republican Caucus will meet at 11:30 a.m., Senate Room 2. The Democratic Caucus will meet at 11:30 a.m. in Senate Room 1.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The senator from Lynchburg, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate do now adjourn until 12 noon tomorrow.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate stand adjourned until 12 o'clock noon tomorrow? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Senate stands adjourned until 12 o'clock noon tomorrow.